Hey guys, what's up? Dan Sugarman from JamPlay.com here. As we move forward and start picking up more and more pieces and adding them to our toolbox, we really need to be learning how to utilize these tools on our own. The old saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. That's what this is about. It's my goal to teach you guys to fish as opposed to feed you gas station sushi for the rest of your life. If we can take everything that we've done today and you guys can come up with a perspective and an approach so that you can milk everything for what it's worth, that would be the best thing to do. So what I like to do is I use this method called the quarantine. This is something that's really simple, but it sort of comes down to this. What is the definition of insanity? I'll tell you. It's when you repeat the same action over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Let me show you an example of that. Let's take the riff we did in the last lesson. Damn. Damn. I could go over and over and over on that loop again. Clearly, 3/4 of that riff isn't causing me problems. It's the very last measure that's causing me problems. So why would I waste my time practicing the first 3 steps that I already have down? It's not effective, and again, it's literally the definition of insanity. Now, to be the most efficient and effective player that we can possibly be, we need to be fine-tuning our practice regimens. We need to be honing in on exactly what we need to be practicing. The difference between practicing and playing guitar is absolutely massive. When you're gonna play guitar, you're playing stuff you know. To practice guitar means you're working on weaknesses. You're trying to shift your weakness columns into the strength column. Now, to do so is really simple. Going back to what I was saying, let's use the quarantine method. So if this last measure was really what was giving you a problem, why would we practice anything else but that? But really, there's a further method to it. How do we take that, master it, and then implement it back in? Now, the system is really simple. Basically, what you want to do is give yourself the reward in your brain that you can play the part that you keep messing up on. You could play it right. It gives yourself this dopamine situation. I've heard recently that literally when you play something properly, it does the same exact thing as if you were, taking a drug. It's the idea of releasing dopamine in your brain. It causes an excitement, a happiness. So every time you can release that dopamine by playing something properly, you're driving yourself further. You're propelling yourself further down the path of a guitar player. So let's go ahead and take this line. The very last line is the hammer-on. Okay, so maybe my problem isn't the hammer-on. Maybe my problem is more specifically that part. So what that is, it's a directional picked thumb muting line. I want to make sure that everything that I'm doing is slowed down and I'm perceiving everything that's happening. I need to be highly aware. This in-the-moment focus that we need to be developing here is how you're going to learn to fish. You need to be able to extract everything you can out of small things so you can learn what's missing, what's right, what's wrong, what do you need to add, what do you need to take away. All these things require this intense level of awareness. So again, let's take this piece. Sounds better now. So after we've gone ahead and massaged that piece that was causing us problems into a better position, what we want to do after that is we've received the dopamine reward. We're feeling good. Let's go ahead and start connecting that to the pieces after it. So all we're going to do is going to take that exact fragment and play through it into the first half of the riff. Perfect. So now we're feeling good. We're starting to feel like we can introduce this back into the environment, right? But before we do that, let's add the piece before it. So now we're making sure it's smoothed out on the front end and the back end. So we're going to take that first hammer-on line and then shift into the thumb muting line. Let's go ahead and look at that. Cool. Let's add it a little bit to the piece after it so it starts to become fully reintroduced. Okay, now we're starting to feel like it's completely a part of the environment. It lives there, it belongs there, it's its habitat. What we're doing now is effectively making our brain understand what was wrong, and by being able to move through it and feeling good about it, we're not going to keep hitting that same wall and repeating the cycle of insanity. Now that you've effectively mastered the piece that was causing you issues, we reintroduce it back into the entire equation. Now you could do this slowly by reintroducing small fragments to the front and back end, or if you feel like you've massaged your issue section, you can go ahead and toss it in and test it. So let's take the whole entire riff and see how it sounds together now. Learning to be able to discover what exactly is causing the issue is what this is all about. One of the most effective ways to do so is to make sure when you're practicing, sometimes throw on a little camera. Film yourself playing so that you can not only analyze the audio, but you could visually see what you're playing. If you don't have the ability to record yourself with a camera, make sure when you practice to a metronome, shift that piece of information to practice to a metronome while recording. Because you recording to a metronome, again, allows you to analyze what you played outside of the fishbowl. It removes you from being in the bubble, so to speak, so you can actually be critical and make good decisions about what could be better and what was wrong. Without that, you're sort of just going blind. Another really helpful thing that's gonna help you practice is when you can, play in front of a mirror. That way you could be looking at your right hand through the mirror, and you could be looking at your left hand or your fretting hand right here, right in the moment. And that way I only have to look a little this way and a little this way. Otherwise, I have to completely break my focus of my fretting hand to focus on my picking hand. It's completely removing you from the system. You want to be able to take all of the stuff in at one time so you can effectively improve. So one of the other things I want to go ahead and add to this little idea is going back on what I said before about milking your weaknesses for all they're worth. If we've gone ahead and discovered that this indeed was a little weakness for you, and again, this is just an example, so for you it might be different, but for now, let's say that was a problem for you. Rather than being like, okay, I've practiced that riff, I could play that riff right. What I want you to do is go ahead and practice that and make it your own. So why don't we go ahead and look at a way that we could take this particular thumb muting idea and create a looping exercise that's removed from that position of the neck, and it's gonna reteach us how to master this in a different way. Again, forcing us into uncomfort zone. Let's check it out. So what we have here is a really, really cool system for you getting the most out of anything that's causing you problems. Again, we're milking our weaknesses. We're gonna quarantine the problem, make sure we can cure the problem before reintroducing it back into the environment. Because we don't wanna make all of our other parts sick, right? We wanna make sure everything's healthy and working the way it needs to work. One last thing I wanna go ahead and add is, we're working on two-hand sync here, okay? So if we're working on our approach or the note itself, that's gonna be our articulation and accuracy. Practice that stuff on a clean setting on your amp. It's gonna really expose all of that stuff for you. If you wanna practice cleanliness, make sure you're throwing that distortion on, because what it's gonna do is expose all the excess string noise that would be hiding under a clean setting. Now, we're at the point in our lesson series where practicing with distortion from here on out is the best bet, okay? But if you're gonna go back and practice any of the stuff from previous lessons, be sure to be on clean setting. The end goal of all of this is to make both tones sound as good as possible so that no matter what setting you're on, acoustic, not plugged in electric, clean electric, dirty electric, electric with a ton of distortion and delay and effects, all that stuff is only gonna go and make the stuff end up sounding muddier, especially the delays and the reverbs. So you wanna make sure your source tone, your playing essentially, is as clean as possible, as accurate and synced up as possible. This way it's gonna avoid any problems that you run into later.